thank you enough for joining us on this Saturday morning. We're going to cover some of the questions that I get asked the most often. I don't care if I'm in one of our independent bird suppliers that I love so much, or if I'm around a coffee table or out having a barley pop with one of my friends on the deck. People are always saying, Man Mel, there's so many feeders. There's so much seed. How do I know what to feed? Well, we're going to cover all that and we're going to have some fun doing it. But I had a couple things I want to do real first. First of all, I want to say happy birthday, Mom. It's my mom's birthday. And I just want to say, hey, we get done with this session. We're going to be in the car and head up your way. Looking forward to look at some birds on your patio. But in the meanwhile, we're going to have a fun, informative session. And we're going to have the chance, like every Saturday, where you can win lots of prizes. We're going to be giving away this 160. Well, we got them on there backwards. I told the crew here I needed more coffee. But these binoculars are one of my favorite, and they're absolutely from my favorite company, Vortex. And speaking of Vortex, if you haven't noticed, we've started on Tuesday nights a new Ask the Expert night. Last week, we had a huge crowd for Stan Tequila, and he'll be back doing hummingbirds again in June. But this Tuesday, we've got one just as good. Adrian Lisak, I think I said that last name right, Adrian. He is incredible as far as being able to simply tell you, hey, how do you pick out a pair of binoculars? What about us guys with glasses? What do we need to consider? What does a beginner, what should they do? How about advanced? So make sure you tune in Tuesday night, 8 o'clock Central Time for that session. It's going to be really good. And like and share that. We're going to be giving away some special prizes. Invite your friends to that Tuesday night session, and they and you will be eligible for special drawings. So keep that in mind. And speaking of drawings, like every week, what you need to do is go on and tell us where you're from. We started out, hey, guys, we still want all you Central Missouri guys saying, hey, I'm from Mexico or I'm from Paris. And there really are towns like that here in the Midwest. But we also want to hear about where you're from all over the country. We had 30 states on the Tuesday night program. Let's see if we can't beat it today. So tell us where you're at, because that puts you in a special drawing for prizes. You'll also get extra entries. You're in right now for joining us. But you get extra ones if you say, hey, I got this question. Would you help me out? Or, hey, I got the answer to that. And I'm going to ask several questions today. So be ready, because it's the first correct answer that gets the prizes. Okay? And we want you to start doing something every week. Send a photo of your most exciting moment in your backyard. What was just so cool that you think the world should see it? And you know what? For doing that, we've still got some of these pocket bottles, and people are saying, wow, I like that thing. Got a little clip going in your belt, a little brush here to clean it. Everybody that sends in a photo is going to win one of these. We got cardinals, we got hummingbirds. If you got a favorite, let us know. We'll send it your way. And we got butterflies. And you know what? In a couple of weeks, we're going to talk butterflies with a butterfly expert. So lots of fun things coming up down the road. And you'll get your prize pick of 2 prizes then if your photo is picked the grand champion. We've got a special hummingbird package and a special feeder package that will be detailed on the website. So send those photos in. Everybody wins, and a couple of you are going to win a really big honking prize I personally put together that I guarantee you're going to love and going to get birds. So let's get going on today's topic. You know, bird feeding's been around a long time. And people have said, well, you know, which type of feeder? There's tubes, there's trays, there's hoppers, it's all that. Well, most of it started with, and this is one of my favorite ones now, the Aspect seed tube. And I'll tell you why in a little bit. But there was a company and a gentleman that invented the first seed tube. For your first quiz today, who invented the first seed tube and what year was it? What was his name and what year was it? Okay? Got another question. How many years has this old man been in the birding business? It's longer than you might think, okay? The next question, what 2 brands are our wild bird brands? We have 2 different brands that our own private labels are on. And last but not least, what's Man Mel's favorite tube feeders? Okay, I gave you a hint, but it's not the whole answer. So think about it hard. I said feeders. That's more than one. Okay, so let's talk about what are your options, you know, as far as seed and feeders. And, you know, I'm going to talk first about the seeds that a lot of you will use day in, day out. This little boy here, I didn't put him on the table, but black old sunflower. If you want to pick one seed, that is the seed to build your program around. But you know, this bag is not the same. It's not the same seed in every bag. Open these up, put them out, hold them in your hand. Better yet, let a chickadee compare a quality seed like your local independent retailer would sell versus, forgive me, don't mean to be like Mr. Negative Big Box, but boy, I see some real junk in there when I open those bags. And you know, there's just no bushel weight to it. And that's what us independent retailers do. We check it for bushel weight. We check it for moisture. And then the chickadee will tell you whether we did our job or not. But good, clean sunflower seed is where I start everything. And you know what? There's a guide. And I finally found this thing. I was looking for it, and I've seen it reprinted. I saw it was first done in 1985. It's the Wild Bird Feeding Preferences, a guide to wild bird feed. And this is a little chart that says what birds like what seed. And you know, since then, there's been a lot of tests done, and this chart is still right. So what I tell you today is based on my experiences, but it's also based on data. It says, hey, if you want to track this bird, this is its favorite seed. This is its least favorite seed. So some good things going on there. Okay, why black oil? Somebody is asking. Because it has the most oil content, the most energy per bite inside of it. Okay, as far as the base seed. They get more nutrition per their energy taking care of it. But you know what? Man Mel has a favorite seed. And that favorite seed is take the hull off the black oil seed. Then it makes even more sense to feed it. Because one, you don't have waste on your deck, on your patio. That's where I feed it. I'm going to show you a couple feeders. I had some really mad goldfinches today. Don't know if you saw that video this week, but there's a tray that I got hanging out. I'll go ahead and take that right now. I got several great helpers here in the room. Thank you very, very much. This tray here, as you guys saw in the video, this is my favorite setup. It's a hanging tray feeder, and we'll talk about tray feeders later. But in the summertime in particular, I put what we call seed hoops underneath of them. And what you see in the video is the finches were all over this as well as up here. I like this cover we make here in Mexico as far as protecting it. It's a recycled tray. Hey, I'll give you that back now. Thank you, Alexis. It's just absolutely one of my favorite feeders. And one of the reasons why is I've taken a little time lately to observe the birds is, you know, even in goldfinches, there tends to be a bully, kind of like with the, with the hummingbirds. So having that big old honking tray, he just can't keep everybody off the whole thing. So, you know, versus a little tray like the one on top, well, sometimes he can keep them off. So that's one thing I would tell you. Bigger is better in a bird feed tray. Okay, it does help let more birds feed. So one of my things there. But we started out with black oil seed. We talked about, you know, what's another seed that you could add to it? Well, the seed that most companies add to it is millet. And they do that because many years it's lesser expensive and it's somewhat a filler. This does not have any place in this. I want to teach you that. If you see a mix that's full of millet, it isn't meant for a seed tube, okay? And this happens to be a Niger thistle tube, and it has fine chopped sunflower in it. We'll tell you why I've got that in there. And we said it before. Now, this stuff is okay. And where's my ground tray? I need to get that thing. Oh, Lordy. It's okay in here. And this is the feeder I use year-round. But right now I have it underneath some of my trays. I don't know if you can see. And yeah, I got some white millet in there. Now, why do I do that? Birdman, I don't think you like millet. Well, I don't like it year-round, but my indigo buntings like it. The towhees like it. And some of the smaller, the white crown, the right, different sparrows like it too. So native sparrows, not that nasty old thing, I don't like that comes from England. And no offense, English people, but I don't like your sparrow. He kills my bluebirds. But forgive me going off camera there, but that kind of ground tray is another option as far as trays you can use. And I do find my cardinals, if I put some sunflower hearts down there, they, you see it, they kind of like to hop along the ground, and they like that. And that's, of course, that's that bright red bird that we all love, even if you don't have a ball team like ours here in St. Louis. Okay, so you got millet, you got sunflower seed. What's some of the other stuff folks use? Well, I love putting some nuts in my mixes. And it can either be peanuts like this, or it can be tree nut pieces. There are, and a lot of what we eat that isn't suitable for us, honestly, some of that is what, if it gets dirty or something, or they have a problem in the production plant, that gets put into bird seed. It's processed safely, and peanuts is one of those things, although some is grown just for bird seed. And the same for tree nut pieces. And I'm talking walnuts, I'm talking pecans are my favorite too, but I see several different things in tree nut pieces. But I tell you what, there's a bunch of birds that like these. And which birds are those? Anybody got a guess? Put a guess in on what birds really like tree nut pieces, okay? I'll give you just a second and I'll come back to that. Why won't my finches eat my Niger? I'm really glad somebody asked that, because that was the next seed. Normally, most people, you go to a big store, there'll be sunflower seed and there'll be Niger. And this is a Niger. And it's a very fine, and it's not a thistle from America. That it's Nyjer. It's from, most of it's from India or Ethiopia. And when it's done right, it's a good seed. It's got nice oil content in it. As I've told you on other programs, an awful large percent of the Niger, though, was cooked, in my opinion, too much. The oil's not in there. So I'm in our bird store in Songbird Station. You got to fight us to take Niger. And that's why I have this fine chopped sunflower hearts. It'll fit in the same feeders. It's grown here in America, and that's what I recommend. Now, if you've got some Niger, some things to do is, if it's been in there a while, empty it out. I'm a tightwad. I don't throw it away usually. But, for sure, each time you fill it, do it from the top one time, the bottom the next. That's one thing I like. Whoops, I'm going to make a big mess. But bottom line, there's a little button on these feeders, tube feeders here from Aspects. And this is one of my two favorite tubes. And this is my other one, our Spiral. So there's your answer to the question. The Spiral lets the birds run all the way around that thing. And they really like it. This would normally have perches on it. I got in a hurry this morning and didn't put the perches on. I apologize, folks at Aspects. But these two are my favorite tube feeders. I'll show you on this one because it's not full. Basically you can fill from the top one time, the bottom the next. You can do the same thing with the Aspects feeder. So you don't get that seed going boom, 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 and then it's all wet, it's all nasty tasting, smelly. So, if you got that stuff in there, take it out. Sometimes you got to beat the feeder against something to clean it out good. But that's the other thing. Every 30 days, make sure you clean feeders. 1 part bleach, 9 parts water. Okay, that's very, very important, especially important on these finch feeders. Okay, so there we are. But that's what's going on with the Niger. How do I keep seed from sprouting in my yard? Well, there's nothing you can do on that per se other than feed seeds that don't sprout. And that's one thing I love about sunflower kernels. There's one thing I love about nut pieces, and that's why our personal mix, and almost every wild bird store I know of, and a good lawn and garden and a good nursery that has bird seeds will have what's called a patio mix or no sprout mix. And what's in there is going to be whole sunflower. It's going to be whole peanuts, or my favorite. My mix is just made up of nut pieces and that. But other people add some whole millet. They add some different things hold out. And those are what I feed this time of year in areas where I don't want something to sprout if I don't have a seed tray underneath of it. So great question. And people say, well, do you need to feed the birds during the summer? Absolutely. Think about it. Mama's having babies, okay? Baby's hungry. Now, they're not eating seed right away, but it will amaze you pretty soon. You'll see the woodpecker coming, getting a little piece of suet, taking it to mama. He's also the one I said, who likes those peanuts? Well, it's woodpeckers, nuthatches, chickadees, titmice. We call those the clinging birds. They absolutely love nuts. So if you want those birds, that's what you want to feed. And just a little bit of that in the mix. If you don't find a mix that has it in it like you want, some people mix their own in there. So that's a good way to feed that. So, that's things they love. You're going to see the cardinals come and get little pieces. The goldfinches later on in the season make a little slurry, and they actually go back and feed that slurry to their birds or to their babies. So fun things that you'll see. Migratory birds are coming through, all sorts of things. And I know I'm getting a lot of questions today. I'm seeing them holding them up over there. But so we can cover our content, I'm going to keep going through the program. But I give you my word that after it, we're going to stay on. We're going to answer it and keep asking those questions, because we keep drawing questions and giving answers up to 15 minutes after the show as far as prizes. And we'll take an hour, 2 hours, whatever it takes. Old Birdman's going to be here. Okay. So I want to talk about other ingredients though real quick. There's 3 things I don't like in a bird seed. Now this one I can tolerate. It's cracked corn. I put a little bit in there. I see once in a while the cardinals, a few woodpeckers will look some of this, but I try not to have hardly any corn in the mix. And I sure as heck don't have 3 things. And that's milo, that's oats, and that's wheat. You see those in a bird seed, run like it's got the plague. And I hate to use that word nowadays, but I mean, it's in there to make somebody money that put it in the bag. It's not there to attract the birds you want. You go to this chart I got, what does that seed attract? Starlings, English sparrows, grackles. If you want some of them, I can cage some up and send them to you. Although I'm lucky, I don't have as many of those as I used to, because I don't feed the feeds that attract them. So you try that. In the same way with the millet. The millet, in my opinion, really attracts the English sparrows. So you got to fight me. Other than on that ground tray this time of year, I seldom feed a lot of millet. I will spread a little bit for the juncos in the wintertime. But again, they'll eat sunflower kernels. So why feed something else that attracts all them other nasty old birds that I don't like? Okay. And I don't think you like them either. So those are some of the things. Dried fruit is something you can feed. We do have a mix that's got it in there. I'll be honest, it's somewhat because some competitors do that. I'm so on that. I find that dry fruit oftentimes, even really high quality stuff, it kind of gets left behind, and it gets to be a pain in the pahoots in the feeders. It what causes me to clean it out. So you can feed fruit. If I want to feed fruit, it'll typically be raisins or currants and a soak in water. Put them out for a robin, or in the wintertime, a cedar waxwing will come. But other than that, nah, not really. Other thing people say, well, oh man, I got bread, I got cereal left over. Can I feed that? Well, if you want a bunch of English sparrows and a bunch of starlings, throw that stuff out there. But just is not a good bird feed. There's not really anybody that eats that you want coming around. Okay. So I hate to say that, but that's kind of what's up. Another one I've talked about in other shows, and they're going everywhere, is whole peanuts. Hey, how are you doing out there? These whole peanuts, I like these a lot because my jays like them. And having the jay coming over here grabbing these peanuts, what it does is it keeps him away from the other feeders. My son and now my grandsons, we've all called those guys the bossy blue jays, because kind of like a pigeon and a dove. Those are great birds, but I don't like them at my feeding stations. And next week we're going to talk about how do you handle that? How do you have some feeders that those guys can't bug you? But these whole peanuts are one of my solutions to keep my blue jays here in the Midwest kind of not bugging the other birds so much. They are a great way, you guys out west, the Stellar jays. We actually show a Stellar jay on the tag here. I don't know if you can see it there. Beautiful bird you got out west. And they like these things too. So a fun thing. Here you go, young man. Got me helpers all over the place here today. So those are some of the main seeds. We've talked about safflower in the past. It's a white seed. A lot of us put that in a cardinal mix. They like it. The other reason we switched to it, grackles in the summertime are a real pain. We're going to talk next week more about grackles, but this is one of the solutions. They don't tend to like grackles. Grackles don't like this seed so much. So keep that in mind for another seed. And then I did want to show you, this is, again, the mix. If you're not going to use fine chopped sunflower kernels, at least mix some with that Niger seed. And that's a lot of folks that your local retailers that I believe in, those local independently owned family businesses, they'll have a mix. It's got some of the Niger in with some fine chopped sunflower. So check them out. So we talk about seed, but there is other ways that it's available. And I put the jelly here, right? My God almighty, the Orioles have been eating jelly. But you know what else is eating them? The mockingbird's eating it. The catbird's eating it. Even the cardinal, I caught him going by getting a little taste. So keep an eye on your jelly feeders. It won't just be Orioles that go to that thing, okay? Something we don't always recognize. But there are other ways, and in tight budgets, or you're going to be gone for a while, there's some ways that I like to feed, and I'm looking for a seed cake. Right here it is. These guys here, and you can tell a lot of what I hold up, I really use, because, I called this a payday bar the other day. This came right off the deck, and it's a seed cake that's in there that's all mostly nut pieces. And what those do, for a few bucks, birds come for a long, long time, because it's a little harder to get it out. The doves, the grackles, and I'm giving away part of my session next week, but they can't come get it. Give me that one with the seed cake in it. There you go. Thank you. Took this off the deck, and you talk about a heavy-duty feeder. Our guys out here make these out of recycled plastic. Darned old raccoon, we'll talk about them next week. He knocked this thing down 2 nights in a row, one whole level down. Now look, kind of smashed some stuff up. But first thing this morning, I look out my window at dawn. Mr. Woodpecker said, "Thank you, Man Mel, for picking that up and hanging it back on that hook." I like that nut stuff. So I do like seed cakes. My favorites, you guys know, are from Pine Tree Farms. It's just quality stuff, good nuts. It's just got the stuff in there they like. Everything, there is a little corn in here, but those birds, you need it to bind it together. And the birds, the woodpeckers and stuff, I find they eat it out of this feeder. So I like this guy a lot. Another way that these are available, the folks from Heath are what we stock. They're called Stack'ems, and they're just little hard compressed cakes. And bottom line is they basically go in here too. You just stack them up, and you can pick, there's a cardinal one here. There's a mealworm one here. There's sunflower. So these are another fun way to kind of mess around, see what your birds like. Man, those mealworms are going to have a bluebird coming by. That looks good. Wow. But just some fun ways to feed stuff. There's seed bells. I don't know if mom's watching or not. I kind of hope not. But, I'm giving mom 3 different kinds of seed bells. Just a little way that she can feed some birds this summer, but not have to worry about, is the feeder empty, isn't it empty, that sort of thing. So happy birthday, Mom. If you're watching, you got some seed bells coming. And the other way they come is little round balls. And there's feeders. This one happens to be pecans. We work with some folks down in Texas where there's lots of pecans, and they make us a special little round ball that we have a feeder I should have brought that has those. So lots of different things. Some of us add suet pellets to the mix, and at other times we add mealworms. So you can kind of do your own special recipe. It's fun. So mess around with it. Go to that local wild bird supplier. They got suet nuggets. They got dried and live mealworms. They probably got some seed ball type things. And mix up your own recipe. Have some fun with your children. I've worked with several people where we did a science project. We'll put this stuff out and say, hey, what did that attract? And keep track of it. And then what if we switch to that? What did it attract? So some fun things to do with your children. And you guys know that Man Mel, even though he's on a video today and on a live broadcast, we want to get our kids out in nature with God, touching, feeling, seeing what's out there as far as the birds, the bugs, the reptiles, the butterflies. Like I said, we'll be talking butterflies in a couple weeks. So some fun stuff there. We're going to switch gears now. We got all this seed. What kind of feeder are you going to feed it in? Well, I already talked about my favorite tube feeders. There's these two here. I'm not really going to say a lot more about that. Young man, can I hand you these? Okay. But I'm going to go to another type now. Another way to present things like the thistle. Heaven forbid I would mix it with some stuff. You know where I stand on that. But there's these mesh feeders. And I like these because think about it. The whole feeder is a feeding surface. Like this here ball thing. And these are both products from our Songbird Essential site. You'll see finches cling all the way around this rascal if you fill it full of sunflower kernels. Okay? It's not meant to put millet in. You know, it should, anything that's above the ground, I'm sorry, it shouldn't have millet in it. So that's why the holes are bigger. And it's not meant for fine chips, but boy, sunflower kernels, we call them hardy hearts. They are great in here. And besides the finches, you'll see woodpeckers, nuthatches, chickadees, titmice. And if you're not catching on, I really like kernels. And why do I like that? I can put them in a little feeder and feed just the birds I want. The doves, the grackles, the starlings. They can eat some of it, but it's a pain. You guys know one of my other favorite little feeders is the clingers only. Again, you got to be a little bird that can just cling here. Once in a while, a starling will get on there. I've never seen a grackle on here. But again, just a special treat. I put these on the window a lot of times, on a window hook for special birds. So again, what have I got in here for woodpeckers and nuthatches? I practice what I preach. I got nut pieces. I got black oil sunflower. I got sunflower kernels. Okay, that's the good stuff. So remember that. Those three things is what the old birdman says to feed, and you're going to get the birds you want. And then you can put it in special feeders to get special kind of birds and not feed the other ones. Pretty cool, huh? I like that sort of thing. Now, you know, it doesn't have to be $1 million feeder. You know, when you talk about the finch mixes, you can start with a simple finch sack. And I'm really proud. Both of these are made right here in Mexico, Missouri. Thank you guys over at Continental Products. And black mesh is our original one. I really like how the goldfinches look on this. But out west, some of you guys wanted a softer cloth and you wanted a gold one. So we got that one too. But those are some really, really good things, okay? So some fun stuff going on there as far as inexpensive ways to do what you want as far as getting started, okay? So we talked about those things. So what are we going to go next, young man? What do you think we talk suet? Sound good to you? Hand me over that big old feeder. Okay, one thing I forgot. We talk about, boy, I'm stealing part of my session, but this suet feeder here, I should have showed you before. It's called the Suet Palace, and I should have brought it out of the box. But bottom line, there's a cage inside of a cage. And what happens is squirrels can't get in there, grackles can't get into it, and neither can the doves. But there's a little plate on the bottom you can take it off, so even the big woodpeckers can hang from the bottom and get to it. There's other ones we sell that's not under our label where that cage is in the middle, and that's all good. The small woodpeckers can get in there, but the big old boys can't. Speaking of big old boys, give me that big old feeder over there. Okay, question, everybody. And then I'm going to need that squeeze bird right there. We're going to give them a hint. Why did Mel and his company have a feeder built this big? What woodpecker am I aiming for? Notice the big long tail. Think maybe the bird has a big tail? Give you a hint. Yep, this is what he kind of looks like. That's certainly a sound. Those of you that live in Mexico, we saw him right out on Cunningham Road, right across from where he turned into our house this week. So we got these rascals out and make sure we had them. So I'll tell you a little bit later about this thing. And I mentioned it was a tail. Give me those other feeders out of there, please. Thank you so much. Okay. And this is one, and forgive me, they're dirty. They come out of the yard. You know, not quite as long, but could work for that same bird. But then, you know, my normal type feeder I normally use is that this side. And all of these have a tail prop so that, you know, he uses that tail to bounce up the tree. Well, all of those, these help him do that. Now, there are some other advantages to one other feeder. Let me have, is that it for the suet ones? Whoops, here it is. Sometimes starlings can be a trouble, so this upside down deal is a help. And we'll talk about next week how you can make your own upside down feeder with the feeder you already got. But this is a fun way to feed suet and keep the starlings and the grackles out of it. But there's some tricks to how you hang this, but you got to stay tuned. Come back next week. We'll tell you how to whip them starlings with some products that they can't get to, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and tell you, folks, that big old woodpecker, that was a pileated or a pileated, okay? And guess, I do want another quick question that I didn't have on my list, Miss Kaylee. What cartoon character was modeled after the pileated woodpecker? It's pretty easy if you think about it. There was one cartoon character that woodpecker is the one that he was modeled after. And if I forget to tell you, one of you guys tell me to tell him. Okay? One other thing I want to show is a window suet feeder. Where I sat and watched TV by myself while the girls are scrapbooking in the other room. This is on the window back there. And I don't know when I'm in there that there isn't a downy woodpecker saying, "Hey, Man Mel, this is really good stuff. Thanks." Right? And I'm doing that because, of course, he's pecking. And every once in a while, somebody comes to my house and they say, "Well, Mel, there's a problem. I hear something up against your house." Well, no, it ain't. They're pecking on this suet cake here, you know. And they're so much fun. And every once in a while, a chickadee will come by and a titmouse. And if you want a fun thing that the kids will love, put this in a good place. And talking about good places, where should we put our feeders? The closer you can put them, if you happen to be fortunate enough to live where you got some bushes, some trees, and things like that, is that safety to them. That's home to them. So across my yard, wherever I have feeders that are closer to the woods, that's where they come. We had an interesting thing happen the other day. When my brother-in-law was up and we were cutting down an old dead snag that was so big. Now, we left part of it, and we leave a lot of snags for the woodpecker. But this one was going to visit me in the house one of these days in a storm. And when he trimmed it, it fell over and it landed on the deck. And my daughter caught some pictures, and we'll post those later. I'm not sure if we post them. Oh, my God, all these goldfinches that are on that tray. They were like, "Oh, I love this bird, man. Would you mind leaving it for us?" Well, you know, I got vetoed on that idea. I don't think it'd be very handy mowing the yard. And, you know, a few of the other family members weren't sure about, you know, trying to duck under it to go to the, you know, where we would like to set. But the birds like native places to perch. So it protects them, and it helps them that way. So keep that in mind. A couple other things I want to make sure we cover is what is the feeders I like that draw the most birds. And I'm going to tell you they're open feeders. They're feeders that the birds feel safe in them. They're feeders like this guy here. This is called a fly-through, and that's one of your different types of feeders. And again, I put sunflower kernels in here. Sometimes I throw a few peanuts, whole peanuts on top for Mr. Blue Jay. Sometimes I'll mix some nut pieces in here if I want a few more. If I'm seeing some birds, woodpeckers, nuthatches, chickadees, I want to get a few. But the best thing about this and about the hanging tray that I had in my hands before is in today's time, a lot of you are at home, and we talked about raccoons. And one of the ways you know, in some places, the only way we can beat them is you either bring your feeders in or you put just a little bit out each day. And I'm stealing part of my session, but that's what I love about fly-throughs. Every morning before I start I turn the coffee maker on, then I run out on the deck, and I put a little in every one because the raccoon comes by at night. We may be giving him a vacation. He may take a trip to somebody I really don't like here pretty soon. But and you got to take it whoops, I'll tell you next week. I'll tell you there's tricks to giving your friends a present and a raccoon, but you got to be a certain distance and across a certain type of geography or he'll race you home, okay? But I love fly-throughs, one of my favorites, and I showed you the tray. So my number one feeder I recommend is that tray feeder. And I love it with the seed hoop under it, and I love it with sunflower kernels in it. So don't forget that as we go through this thing. We still got a good crowd. Should I keep talking, or is it about time to wrap it up? It's about 30 minutes. Okay, we're going to do 5 more minutes. You know, they tell me I got to be done 30 minutes or I'm not a good host. So let me see. Where in the world are we at on all these notes? We talked about everything other than I didn't talk about window feeders as much as I like. I like this guy here. We have a little pane you can put behind it, a film where they can see you and you can see them. So that's a fun thing. But again, the thing about this feeder is it's bigger. This is a little starter one we have. I love that these guys here are made. This one here, this plastic one here is made here in Mexico, Missouri. This is just a little bitty guy that can go on the window. If you look close at the videos we took of the finches this week, they were eating on this guy. And of course, Man Mel's got sunflower kernels in there, but a fun way to draw birds up close for the children to notice their different habits and to see what they like to eat. Okay. And the other thing we haven't talked about is how do you hang feeders? And we'll touch some more of that in the future. But these are little hanging cables we got. They just it's got a little plastic on it. So when you hang it over a limb, it doesn't dig into the limb so much, okay? The other thing I like are yard cranes. And the one that I recommend is actually taller than this room, so we can't put it up in here. But it's, you want a crane at least 6 foot tall. That's how tall our ones from Songbird Essentials and Backyard Essentials will be. And you want them to come apart so you can get a big old squirrel baffle on them. So use some yard cranes, use some hooks, but when in doubt, keep it, if you can, near the woods, near the shrubbery or something, because we also want to protect those birds from cats. And there's another predator that sometimes eats your birds. Quick question for you. What bothers you? What is a predator that attacks besides cats that will eat songbirds sometimes? Okay, going to tell you that answer in just a second. Okie dokie. Well, folks, I think we've covered a lot. I think it's been fun. I know I got a boatload of questions to answer for you, and I can't thank you enough for that. As we close, I do want to remind you to keep sending those photos of those favorite birds. We want to give away a lot of prizes, and do know that we're going to give that prize every week. And I got just a couple questions to ask you real quick, and this is for the grand prize. What is Man Mel's favorite feeder? What kind of seed is in it? And what is under it? Okay? And do remember that product and everything I've shown here, you can buy at your local wild bird supplier. Do business with those folks that are there every day. They got the same amount of knowledge Man Mel does. Most of them are safely loading seed curbside if you want that. Many of them are delivering to your house. So reach out to those local guys. No need to call that Amazon guy. No need to call me. If you can't find one, email us and we'll tell you where to find a local supplier and check out our store locators. But the other thing I want to make sure you haven't forgot about is check out those bird migratory maps. Go to Wild Bird Migration Maps. I think it's birdmigrationmaps.com. And you can put hummingbirds down if you've seen them. You can put orioles down. A really fun thing to do with the children. And we even got one on there for purple martins. So wasn't in my notes, but you want to do that. I put mine down the other day. I had forgotten. So it's important to remind each other. So keep sending those questions. We're going to keep pulling the answers out for the next 15 minutes. And stay tuned and join us. Don't forget, next Tuesday night, we got Adrian on, and we're going to talk about picking out binoculars, how to pick them out, and we'll have details on that, and even spotting scopes for those of you that want one of those telescope type things. That's really cool because when you get old like me, the more you shake, it's a little bit hard. That spotting scope just sits there, and I look through it, and hey, look out there. There's that pileated woodpecker. And what did they model off to him? It was Woody Woodpecker. He was created based on looking at a pileated or pileated woodpecker. So there's the answer to that question. And then don't forget, next Saturday, we're going to talk about, how to deal with those guys you don't like. The bears, the raccoons, the possums, the starlings, the doves. The list kind of goes on. And we're going to have some neat tips on there. And eventually, I'm even going to have a bear expert on later. So be watching for that later in the summer on the Tuesday night session. But tune in next week, and we'll have some neat solutions on how to feed the birds you want, like we talked this week, but not give your seed away to those critters that you don't want. And that'll be the topic next Saturday. So I'll end it like I always do. Remember, nature is a stress reliever from God. Take time today to listen to the birds sing. I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for tuning in. And Mom, I'm going to get in the car. I'm coming up there. We're going to have some birthday cake. Thanks, everybody.